Hi, David Scott, CEO of Tembo Gold. Welcome, and I'm happy to have you here at the Edelmetall Messe, where you are presenting at our booth, at the GOLDINVEST booth. And I'm really pleased that we finally got to meet each other in person. We were talking to each other via Zoom, obviously, as everybody else, the last little while, and it's been an exceptional ride for you personally, I imagine as well. I think people should know you're based out of Tanzania. You live there, and you've been a big part in the early development of the famous Bulyanhulu mine there and with Barrick. And you're now, since 2012, I imagine, I remember, running Tembo Gold, which has been a real challenge. Before we go to the current stage, I'd love you to give us a little bit of a background of what happened between the last 10 years, actually.
Thank you, Sven. It's a pleasure being here. Thanks for the invite to come and join you guys again. It was 10 years last that I was at this function, obviously at Olympic Park, 10 years ago. So, Tanzania itself went through a difficult time. I think the world junior gold market and particularly junior explorers went through a tough time. West Africa got a lot of attention. East Africa almost lost all the attention. Our last work was in 2014. We drilled through 2014. August 2014, we demobilized. We said, that's it, we're out of cash again. And we could not raise money to come to Tanzania. We spent the next 5 years looking after the company in Tanzania. My colleague Simon Benstead looked after the Canadian side of things with securities exchange, the listing, keeping communication going with the shareholders. While Paul and I, my country manager Paul Magege, we looked after the licenses. We looked after the financials. We saw that they went in every quarter to Canada. Canada made sure we submitted in Canada, and we kept our listing, we kept our licenses. The miracle is we expanded our license area by 50%.
Not only that, but I think the real restart was when you cut a deal with your neighbor, Barrick. So I think it's pretty much a year ago, wasn't it? Something like that. It's an exceptional deal. I think they were prepared to pay $6 million US for non-core, from a Tembo perspective, non-core licenses surrounding the one that you're currently working on. So that funded the company and basically bought for a restart of the whole campaign. And now, only a couple of days ago, you released your first drill results since 2014, pretty much, right?
Yeah, I started talking to them about 4 years ago, to their technical people, sounding them out, how much interest was there. And they obviously were interested, but Bully was closed. Bully was not operating. So there was no urgency. It was before the merger with Rand Gold, and the mine was dormant and nobody was paying too much attention. In December of 2020, I was approached by the then Chief Operating Officer for Africa and Middle East, and he said, we want to do a deal with you. And he was obviously serious. We said, fine, give us a proposal. And they offered us a joint venture. We were not happy with those terms. Then they offered a buyout. We accepted the fact that there could be a buyout, but we were not willing to go at the price that they offered. And they came back and said, okay, well, we'll buy 80% of what you've got, which is all our peripheral licenses that we had done no work on yet. And they left us with the license that we were working on, and which really, to be honest, has got 10 years of exploration to be done on it. There'll be multiple ore bodies, I believe, discovered on it. So it really was a kickstart, as you said. It put money in the treasury.
And really, that really also means that you're the only lasting gold explorer in Tanzania, left in Tanzania, after all these years, because everybody else had to close down their businesses, and it was just a tough time. But I think you should give us a real. There's hardly anybody that knows better the story of Bulyanhulu development than you, because you've been instrumentally involved around the year 2000 following, and you should explain how this Bulyanhulu development is ultimately the template for what you are doing and what you're planning to do.
So, I was at Bully from the word go, when Barrick bought out Sutton Resources. And what Bully then was 1 kilometer of mineralization in strike. It had been drilled down to about 1 kilometer. The top 200 meters was pretty dodgy. It was patchy, good grades, poor grades, good grades, poor grades. And that's what they thought they had. Obviously, they projected it down plunge, which we all know happens in the Archean. However, when we started the drill program to drill out the resource, it went all the way to 2,000 meters and beyond. It's never been found. The bottom's never been found. And the strike went from 1 kilometer at surface to 5 kilometers in strike at 1,000 meters. And the grades got better. They got better down to about 300, and then after that it was consistently 20 gram a ton ore body. So what does that mean for us? I believe we're in the same geological terrain. We're on the same geological fragment, greenstone fragment. The same controls, geological controls were at play. We have additional very positive controls in that we've got 3 directions of structure. Aside from the Bully direction, which is northwest, we've got northeast and east-west. I think all that plays into the potential for very wide and very good grade wide ore bodies. And I think it's just a matter of time as we drill deeper that we're going to find ourselves in the same situation, with things improving both in terms of the lateral consistency and the grade.
So one of the biggest fans of Tanzania, meanwhile, is Mark Bristow. He's been vocal about how great finally it is coming back to the country. He managed to settle with the dispute with the Tanzanian government, and since then has committed to expand the footprint of Barrick. That plays into the Tembo story as well, I guess.
Yeah, that obviously helps a lot. Both assets that they have, the remaining assets, North Mara and Bulyanhulu, have got long lives. They've got good resources and reserves. So, he's looking to the future, and he knows that they're both top quality ore bodies, and they just have to be mined right, and they'll make a lot of profit out of them. What's in our favor at Bulyanhulu is that currently most of the resource and reserve is below the shaft bottom. It's deep ore. It's expensive to mine deep. You've got to ventilate with cool the air and many other things. So I think the opportunity is there for us to make a good discovery, and Barrick themselves on the licenses they bought to supplement the provision of ore to the mill.
Well, you should mention or give it a little bit of a scale. How far away is it from the Bully mine itself to where we are drilling, or we have been drilling this season?
So from their most northwestern workings to our boundary is about 2 kilometers, and they've been drilling, getting closer and closer to that boundary as they've drilled progressively. And then from there, we've drilled in a number of places. It's 4 kilometers, 4.5 kilometers from the headgear, from the head frame, probably 6 kilometers to where we've been drilling.
And I think it's also really one of the amazing things that I saw last year when you cut that deal with Barrick. It's not only a cash portion, but there's also a commitment to spend, I think, $9 million in total over 4 years. 1 year has left, so they must pretty much spend a huge amount of, relatively big amount of money in the neighborhood. And there's and you're poised to benefit from their success. Could you explain how that works?
Yeah, so they've got 4 years, and that 4 years kicked off in about March when the deal actually closed. We signed last year in November, but it took some time for all the approvals and so forth. So they're about 6 months into their program. We've actually only had one quarterly report from them, so we should get one shortly, a second quarterly report from them. So now they start spend money. They've got to spend 9 million in 3.5 years because they've spent very little to date, and that means they'll have to be doing some drilling. And I've no doubt that they will be drilling soon. I expect in the first quarter. If they do not spend the 9 million in the 4 years, whatever they don't spend, they've got to pay to us. So that's an incentive for them to get the money, get the work done, and obviously it's in our favor.
But the story is even better, I think, because if they actually find ounces, you get to benefit from that as well.
Yeah. So two things happen. As soon as they announce, or as soon as they get results, we have the right to announce them because we have a vested interest in those results, in that we get paid out for discovery. For the first 1 million ounces, they're going to pay us $20 an ounce. That's $2 million. For the next 1 million ounces they discover, they're going to pay us $10 an ounce. That takes it up to $3 million. And then for the final 3, they pay us $5 an ounce, total $45 million that we stand to benefit out of the transaction if they discover, and that has no end date. So if they haven't discovered that after year 4, whatever they discover beyond that still counts towards the 5 million ounces.
So obviously we keep fingers crossed for them to be successful, because that could be a source of funding ultimately to Tembo, which is actually not available to not any company that I know of, any gold junior at least, right? It's a pretty unique structure that you negotiated there.
You know, it was a good friendly negotiation. You know, there wasn't much. In fact, there was no arm wrestling at all.
Just to close this, because I think we're already getting pretty long. What is your vision, let's say 6, 12 months out, or maybe even 2 years out from here?
We've got to pay close attention to where we drill. We've got to drill at good targets. We've got to drill accurately. We've got to understand the geology and the structure. That's what our current drill program is giving us, is structure and geology, as well as showing us that there's gold in these structures. And then we must follow those high-grade, wide, good, well-mineralized zones. We must follow them down plunge and start building a resource. So I foresee that by this time next year, we'll have already started to be modeling. We may well have made an announcement. It'll depend on what we get and our ability to continue to drill and maybe even expand the drilling in the next 6 months.
Thank you so much. We'll catch up on that. David, pleasure. And thank you for being with us today. Thank you.